It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Thursday night from the capital city. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great day. And thank you for joining us here on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266, the dial-in number. Looking forward to talking with you tonight. Pretty much wide open for phone calls. Mike Morgan will join us in hour number 2. We'll have the money coach in as well, see what he's got to talk about in terms of the world of dollar bills and sports. So now that we've sort of put the Clemson National Championship to rest here just a little bit until they have their parade on Saturday, we turn our focus more towards recruiting, which is cranking back up, and of course basketball. A lot of basketball tonight involving teams around the state, and Saturday, big days in the state for USC and Clemson. The Gamecocks attempting to get to 3-0 in SEC play. Who would have thought that?
Crazy. And
Clemson trying to avoid an 0-3 start in ACC play. Again, it's the neighborhood you live in. South Carolina lives in the basketball neighborhood of the SEC, which even though it appears to be a better league and they had a good year last year, it still has its areas where you can have some success, even though that win down at Florida was most unexpected and they upset a nationally ranked team. Clemson, you know, you open up with Duke, then you go up to Syracuse. Now you get to come home and play Virginia. So you can understand why the Tigers are looking dead at an 0-3 start unless they really have a great day Saturday afternoon. Maybe they'll be inspired because it's a big ACC game. Maybe they'll be inspired because of the national championship activities.
Well, the first 2 games for South Carolina, in my opinion, I think collectively were harder than the 2 ACC games that Clemson had to play, at least on whole. Granted, the Clemson had to play probably the toughest of the 4 teams of the 2 in their first 2 games of their conference seasons, and the fact that they played number 1 Duke at Cameron, and they have to go on the road to Syracuse. I still think that the win at Florida, being a tough place to play, and the fact that you upset a nationally ranked team at home, like you said, in my opinion, shows where this Gamecock basketball team has come. Clemson's been playing with a little bit of fire here lately, and if for some reason – we talked about this with Brad Brownell near the end of the calendar year last year. They do not have secondary scoring outside of Marquise Reed, and pick your poison between the 2 that might show up on a daily basis. Sometimes it's Shelton Mitchell, sometimes it's Elijah Thomas, sometimes it's Amir Sims. They need 4 scorers, and be able to win in the ACC, you can't score 60 points a game. They're playing great defense. They played better defense in the second half against Syracuse than they did against Duke. But for some reason, they can't seem to score the basketball, in the Syracuse zone really confused them last night.
Yeah, a couple of times they did what a lot of teams try to do, and they hit a couple of threes, and you want to move that zone up a little bit so you can start to backdoor some things behind that zone, but it's difficult to do. I'm still of the ilk that looking at it, maybe it's my imagination, but looking at that wrap on Reed's leg, he doesn't seem like he has that explosive push that he has to really try to drive to the basket, because one of the keys of Clemson scoring is not him always shooting from 3, but getting to the foul line.
Lots of stagnant movement, not enough ball reversal, not enough diagonal passing, and settling for guarded shots. It looked a lot, Corn, like the game at North Carolina last year, where it seemed like Clemson kept jacking up threes and really just had no offensive rhythm whatsoever.
Turnovers, too.
Yes.
Turnovers hurt them. Again, you would think, facing the same defense from Syracuse year after year after year, that you'd have an idea of how to deal with it. But they play it so well, that 2-3 zone, and Clemson had 17 turnovers last night, and Syracuse was able to convert that into 20 points. They got big games from a number of players. Elijah Hughes had 14 and 7. They had the 4 in double figures. And, of course, a guy named Frank Howard stuck it to Clemson last night. Go figure. He had 12 points and 5 rebounds.
Graduate from my old high school.
Is that right?
Yes.
So a good win for Syracuse. They are all of a sudden playing good basketball. They're 2-0 in the ACC, and Clemson drops to 0-2 and 10-5 overall. Tonight here in Columbia, the USC women attempt to get to 3-0 in SEC play against a Florida team that's not very good. So I think you could look for USC to get off to a 3-0 start in women's play. The Clemson women, did they have a matinee game today down in Miami?
Yes,
They did. They did.
Well, they lost.
No,
I'm sorry, they won.
They pulled off
Yeah.
the victory.
Yeah.
First victory over a ranked team in 7 years, and it's the first time since 2003 that they find themselves above 500 in ACC play, and it continues and furthers the great work that Amanda Butler has done. I would say there's probably no greater turnaround from one season to the next. Maybe Gamecock baseball, but at least of these two programs that we've seen over the last couple of years, and Amanda Butler just really completely transforming this women's basketball program at Clemson.
76-67. Tigers outscored the Hurricanes 30-18 in the fourth quarter. So they go to 11-5 and 2-1. And Miami falls to 14-4 and 2-1. That is a nice win for them on the road.
And they get another opportunity for a road-ranked victory at Florida State this weekend. If you start to rank up these little notches on the board there, you start talking about NCAA tournament stuff.
A lot of teams around the state playing tonight. You've got Winthrop at Campbell, Radford at Upstate, Texas State at Coastal, Presbyterian at High Point, East Tennessee at Citadel, Charleston Southern at Hampton, Drexel, College of Charleston, Furman at VMI, and Wofford at Greensboro. We'll keep you up to date as to the scores in those games as we move forward through the night. Of course, last night's around the ACC and the SEC. ACC last night, you had Virginia Tech winning at Georgia Tech in a close one. Virginia Tech's undefeated in league play.
And they're ranked, I think, 10th now, I believe. Yeah.
Pittsburgh beat Louisville last night. Virginia won at Boston College, and Florida State beat Miami. And no games tonight in the ACC. As far as the SEC is concerned, and Mike Morgan will be joining us after the top of the hour. We'll talk more in detail about things that he's seeing around the league. He watched Georgia beat Vanderbilt last night. Ole Miss surprised Auburn down in Oxford. And it was Florida beating Arkansas last night.
That was an ugly game.
And Florida bounces back from the loss to South Carolina to get that win last night. No games tonight in the SEC.
When is the last time 108 points total between two teams have been scored in Bud Walton Arena?
Very bad.
I mean, it was just.
You'd have to dig deep for that.
It was you know what it looked like? It looked like a Frank Martin type win. It was a bump and grind win for Florida.
As far as anything else happening around here, it's now being reported publicly, though it's been on the message boards for a little bit. I think Channel 25 in Columbia has a report saying that Lance Thompson, how'd they word it?
Will not be with the Gamecocks, basically in what is being called a business decision. This is from our friend Mike Gillespie at Wolo. It says he will not be back next season. It's unclear whether he left on his own accord or was let go. A replacement has not yet been named. We asked Ray Tanner point blank yesterday after the staff change involving Pat Washington's departure, Bobby Bentley moving to tight end coach, and the hiring of former Miami assistant Thomas Brown, whether or not any more changes were on the horizon. And we've yet to get anything from that. He said nothing at this point, but he did not rule it out. You know, I'm wondering, Corn, why this particular situation is moving at a glacial pace. I know that they really wanted to move expediently on Brown because of the fact that they're trying to get in on a couple of very, very key running back recruits. But why Thompson? I don't know if it's something involving the fact that the guy that they want is not available or they haven't found the replacement yet. But for some reason, this little limbo that Lance Thompson finds himself in is not a good look for USC.
Well, Lance is a guy that has moved around a lot in his career. This will be now his 9th move since 2000. So he's known for staying 2 or 3 years and then moving on to another spot. That's, not saying that this is his decision or Muschamp's decision. I don't know which way it happens to be. I did notice in checking out his Twitter page earlier today just to see if anything was happening there. He hasn't tweeted on his Gamecock Twitter page since back in mid-December. So it kind of sounds like from that standpoint, maybe it was the latter part of December. It's been a little while. It kind of sounds like he was shutting it down from that standpoint. Recruiting wise, now this is a significant thing because Jaquez Soros, a USC target defensive lineman who we talked about the other night, that's a guy Lance Thompson has been recruiting. He went down to scout him. He's been actively involved in his recruiting. So you've got to be careful here, even though Muschamp and Travaris Robinson have been actively involved in his recruiting as well. When you change a position coach, it can definitely affect a guy you are recruiting at that position. So the next guy in has got to come in relatively quickly, build that relationship, and try and pick up where the other guy left off. A break, and we'll get to your phone calls.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. If you're watching us on our YouTube feed or on Periscope, you see that I believe I feel a little overdressed here, gentlemen. But I will be on Watch Fox tonight with the fine folks there on their Sports Zone show. It was on there earlier before the holiday season, talking about Clemson's Bowl, and we'll be talking tonight with Courtney King just kind of about some of the things we talk about here today, obviously with Gamecocks and hoops basically heating up. Clemson, yesterday the talk about them was players departing. Today we find that one's decided to stay.
Yes, Kayvon Wallace, safety, announces he'll be back. He's 2 semesters shy of graduating, so he announced on Twitter a little while ago that he will return. Had a pretty good season, had 53 tackles from the back end position, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, broke up 3 passes, forced 2 fumbles. Of course, their safeties got a lot of criticism, but they played well against Alabama. And so you look at the depth chart for Clemson now with that news, all 4 safeties, the top 4 safeties as of right now, will be back in Wallace and Muse and Johnson and Turner. So that's good for Clemson in trying to put that defense together for next year. The rebuild is going to be up front when you talk about a bunch of new faces coming in. Still waiting on Cleveland Ferrell to announce. He has until Monday. That's the deadline for putting your name in the draft.
I just got this feeling that Clemson's modus operandi early on is their best defense is just to maul people offensively and then turn the other team one-dimensional because they play catch-up.
So much has been talked about with Ferrell from the standpoint of, what he's done. And obviously when you think about his time with the team and it seemed like a foregone conclusion that he would join Bryant, Lawrence, and Wilkins all in departing. But he's been probably among most people the most of the wavering. I think we all were kind of pretty sure that Lawrence was going to go even before the Osterine thing happened. And I wasn't surprised about Trayvon Mullen, especially the way he played in the bowl game. And even Trey Lamar looked like he had played his last couple of games and was treating it as such. I'm not so sure that Ferrell maybe hangs it up. I mean, maybe there's some ambiguity there with him. Maybe he is feeling a little bit of a tug back toward the Clemson way.
Well, everybody was surprised with Christian Wilkins last year. Everybody was surprised by Austin Bryant last year. Ferrell could have gone last year. Everybody was surprised about that. So who knows? I can't see any reason why he would come back.
I couldn't either, but
he's got 2 rings.
Yeah.
And you're being talked about as being one of the, if not the first defensive lineman or defensive end taken in the draft. So you're talking millions, and you're coming off a win. Last year, I think Wilkins was greatly affected by the loss, didn't want to leave Clemson on a loss. And he's just a guy who thinks differently. Obviously, financially, he's in a situation where he didn't have to rush off to make the millions in the NFL, could afford to wait another year, but he didn't want to leave with the bad taste of a loss in his mouth. Now, if you're Ferrell and you're looking around, you see all your buddies are gone. If you come back, you're going to be the elder statesman with a bunch of basically newbies. You're going to be getting the majority of the playing time. That sometimes is not a good thing. Sometimes it's best to leave with your crowd. And again, logically speaking, it makes no sense for him to come back.
I'm not saying it is logical.
Well, you mentioned something that he may be looking at from another direction, the same thing. He's been one of the guys, playing in the band. Now he may wants to be the front man.
That's the
and
true
say,
thing.
Here's a guy. And then he'll be what? If he plays the way he has consistently played since he's been at Clemson, he could be a top 5 pick.
You saying this is a
I think he might already be.
You saying this
top
is
5 pick.
You saying this is Sting's solo act as opposed to playing just as a member of the police? Is that what you're saying?
Something like that.
All right, 800-956-7266. Getting your phone calls in a second. You can, of course, get us over the airwaves over our 30 stations around the state of South Carolina. We thank each and every one of those. We have many ways you can get us now. We have our stream on Periscope on Twitter. We have our stream on YouTube. You can watch us there. We have our podcast. It goes out every night after the show. If you miss a show, our podcast goes out on SoundCloud, on Twitter, on Facebook. No excuse for not catching us in some form or fashion. Make sure you do. And, of course, if you lose us over the air, you want to stay with us as you're traveling, Our stations are available on the TuneIn app as well as the radio.com app, so you can find one of our stations there. With that all said, to your phone calls, 800-956-7266, and Britton in Rock Hill. You're up first tonight here on Sports Talk. How are you?
Doing fine. How you guys doing?
Good. Thank you.
Good. Like most Clemson fans, I've gone back and watched the game. I hadn't been ridiculous and watched it. Some of these guys have probably watched it 30 times. I went back and watched it once, and I think the one thing that stands out to me that nobody's really talking about is the officials were terrible, but they were consistently terrible.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch it, there's a lot of holds. I mean, both sides, a lot of pass interference, both sides.
Mm-hmm.
There was a targeting in the first half that was absolutely terrible, and I don't know how they didn't call that. There was one in the national championship game in 2016, I think on Mike, that didn't get called either, but just not very good, and that's all I want to say on that. And I had a question. The Ely kid that's Mississippi, I think he was committed to Ole Miss, and then he backed away, but he's still going to go down there and everything. I've looked all over the website. Is he going to try and do both? Is he going to try and play baseball and football, or is he going to decide to do one or the other? And I'll jump off and listen to you guys off the air. Love the show. Thank you.
Well, his first mention was this. I cautioned people before the game that you had Big Ten officials, and they allow a lot of jersey tugging and everything else, which I thought Clemson adapted to very well, just like they adapted well when they won the national championship the last time with Big 12 officials.
Yeah.
So the officiating, while we want to, poo-poo it over here, you got to be able as a coach to figure out what they're going to allow. And I thought Clemson did well with the jersey grab.
I was very ready to pat you on the back, but you did a very good job of doing it yourself.
Yes, I did.
As opposed to Ely.
Yeah, Ely is a dual sport guy. If he goes to college, he'll play both. Schools who are recruiting him are also showing off their baseball programs. When he goes to Clemson this weekend, he'll meet with Monty Lee, maybe not as much as the football staff, but quite a bit. He is a prime baseball prospect. But the thing you have to consider, too, if you sign him, is what's going to happen in the baseball draft. The projections are right now first round, high money, and what will he do? Will he try and do the Kyler Murray thing, perhaps, or will he try then to make a decision and just go one way? That remains to be seen. But if you sign him in February, South Carolina's trying to get into that thing too. He has been in touch with Thomas Brown, and they're trying to no doubt get him in for a visit. He has an open weekend next weekend because he's got Clemson this weekend and Ole Miss on the 25th. So it's possible, if the interest is there strongly enough, that he might take a look.
Separately from that, how about Kyler Murray saying he's going to at least see what happens with the NFL draft? That's rather curious, especially after it looked like he was going to only play baseball.
Something else, too, that's, we're seeing it more and more now. I'm telling you, free agency, true free agency in college football is just right around the corner. Tate Martell is
not already here.
Yeah, Tate Martell is the latest big name to put his name in the transfer portal because Justin Fields is coming to Ohio State. So he's saying, sayonara, I'm getting out of here. So, the whole idea, especially with quarterbacks now, and probably quarterbacks more than anybody else because they are the most heavily publicized and most heavily recruited person in a game. And as coaches like to point out, there's only one quarterback that plays. You got multiple tackles, multiple receivers, and sometimes multiple running backs, but there's only one quarterback. And these guys are such prima donnas. Seriously, they are such prima donnas because at such an early age, when their talent starts to come out, they are treated differently than everybody else. Yes. And as they move up through the ranks now, through 7-on-7 and through the camps and through the star rating process, believe me, their heads blow up like a balloon. And so when it doesn't go their way, it's not about the team, it's about me. And these guys, they're not going to sit around. We've seen it now both up close with Hunter Johnson when he realized I'm not going to be the guy at Clemson. And now this guy is not even waiting to find out if Justin Fields is going to be eligible. He's saying, apparently, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge.
In my opinion, again, what happened to being able to wait? What happened to being patient and putting together 1 to 2 seasons that are eye-opening enough?
It happened when the kids started holding the remote. They want stuff now. quickly.
Instant gratification. All right, 800-956-7266. Couple lines are open for you. Give us a call right now.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We kind of glanced on this last night, but didn't really get into it fully. But you've seen, of course, over social media that the University of South Carolina is going through a bit of a rebrand, and they are shunning the, quote, USC moniker for U of SC in a lot of their visual branding, and they will, at least according to what they're pointing out here, their informal name now will be U of SC, which replaces USC, which people, at least outside of our region, commonly refer to as the school that is commonly known by us as Southern Cal.
Mm-hmm.
This is obviously something that grinds your gears. It has been a grinding gear
Well,
for you.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I've always, referred to South Carolina here on our show and any of my writings as USC because we report and we cover for a fan base that refers to South Carolina as USC.
Mhm.
I'm not going to call them South Carolina. Well, you will, but I mean, not on a regular basis. I'm going to call them what the fans want the school to be called and how they want the school to be identified, and that is as USC. But now, if the school is officially changing its name, and they can put out in their releases that in the future, please refer to us in this manner. I've seen that from various schools, like East Carolina. When we were there for the baseball regional, in their media package said, please refer to us as ECU, not Eastern Carolina, really not even East Carolina. ECU. Central Florida prefers to be referred to as UCF. The problem with this, and I mean, when it comes to me, logos and brands, I think simpler the better. Less is better. Less is more. And so you with an of stuck in there, SC, to me is a bit wordy, is a bit busy. And what you're doing, of course, is caving to the national media that refers to South Carolina as S Carolina, SCAR, or South Carolina. Occasionally, the SEC people, the SEC network, will call them Carolina.
Right.
Let's ask Mike Morgan when he joins us. This will be a good topic of conversation because he would know, is there instruction amongst the SEC announcers to refer to South Carolina in a certain way? If you call them Carolina, then it's confused with North Carolina. If you call them USC, then it's confused with Southern Cal.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, see, I always think that, you want national branding, but it's also some regionalism to it. And I've seen this before. You've been in the Bay Area. I've been in California. When you see USF in Florida, you know it's South Florida. When you see USF in on the Bay Area, you know it's University of San Francisco.
But people tell us all the time, Trojan fans, they don't call their school USC. They call it SC. Exactly.
That's it.
So why? I mean, just because the national media or the people in the flyover states, when they think USC, they think Southern Cal, but actually the people of Southern Cal think of it as SC. But the people of South Carolina think of USC as USC. So why are you not listening to your own people?
This is from the release. The new branding is heavily on the school's push to rebrand its abbreviated name as U of SC. So I'm guessing that means they do not want any more use of US.
So, so when we sit here and refer to them, they would want us to refer to South Carolina
as U of
SC. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's not coming out of this mouth.
Well, see, it's not.
You just said that you pined to the folks at East Carolina,
and it's not going to work anyway.
You know what? I'll tell you why. We don't cover East Carolina.
Okay.
Here it is.
I'll call them Eastern Carolina. It won't matter.
Miami University in Ohio does not want you to call them Miami of Ohio. They're very, very staunch on that as well.
What are they like?
They just want Miami University or the Miami Redhawks.
Yeah, I mean, Miami University is fine because it's the University of Miami is in Coral Gables.
They just go by the U.
But here's the deal.
How about this for South Carolina? Let's just call them the of.
Well, therein lies what you're talking about, because
let's call them the of.
There's
call them Carolina script.
There's a
that's your favorite.
Oh God, you at least do away with that.
All you got to do
they love the script.
No, all you got to do is this. If somebody's sitting there and South Carolina's driving, you think the fans are not going to say USC? They're going to say U of SC. I mean, it doesn't even sound right.
You got to change the song. Right. U of SC. Go Cox.
Exactly. And I mean, there's other fight songs that
go preposition
that say USC in there. I mean, you're going to ask everybody to change? All right, let's go back to the phones. 800-956-7266. If you're a Gamecock fan out there, what do you think of that? Are you easily adapting to that? Or are you going to fight it in your mind?
I want of in Carolina script on my
Where are we going, Brian? Andy in Columbia. Thank you for joining us, Andy. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Good afternoon there, or evening there, Mr. Korn.
Well. Andy, how you doing, man? Long time.
Yes, long time. And my Mets are going to be putting your Yanks in the dirt here this season coming up. Get you started on that end.
From your lips to God's ears, Andy.
No, it's going to happen.
You can't say that. That's only a Jewish expression. You can't use that.
That's not
true. Well, I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish, so it's halfway good.
No, I'm saying that. I'm telling,
Gentile Pelagian.
John Paul III over here that you can't use that.
Well, I'll use it. from my lips to God's ears. Okay, we can have a defensive line coach at Carolina tomorrow morning. In my opinion, Brad Long should just go ahead and walk in and become the defensive line coach.
I don't disagree personally. I don't know what Muschamp thinks, but I don't disagree personally.
Didn't he coach with Muschamp in Florida?
He did. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so isn't it a good fit already?
Well, he was here before, and I don't know what the relationship remains between the two, and I don't know what damage was done when he left previously. You just don't know. But he is here in Columbia, and he still is considered an excellent football coach and an excellent recruiter. And it would take just a simple phone call to get it done.
Here's the reason why I don't think it's going to happen. Because if it was going to happen, it would have happened. Like, that's the thing. I know people are really,
I think
happy with Brad Long, and they love Brad Long.
Here's the thing, to some degree, and I can't speak from firsthand knowledge, but knowing Muschamp and the way all this stuff has been happening, they may be, before they announce anything, I think they were hoping he would find a job.
Lance, you mean?
Yes, they were hoping he would find a job. Now, why they didn't wait in the case of Pat Washington to find a job? Maybe just different circumstances. I don't know.
The recruiting. I think you were right. We didn't want it Brown in as quickly as possible.
Well, that's true. That's true.
That's what Ray Tanner said. He said we needed a running backs coach because of the fact that the recruiting was opening up. The dead period ended today?
Starts tomorrow. Live period starts tomorrow.
So from that perspective, I look at it from the standpoint of this, I know you want to be good to Lance and all that, and you don't want to make it look like he got fired, and you want to, give him the best foot forward moving forward. But if you wanted Brad Long, you could have made it happen.
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm just saying the fact that it hasn't happened yet tells me that he either wants somebody else or he wants somebody he can't have yet.
Yeah. Well, you see names popping up on various websites, this, that, and the other. You don't know what's true, what's not true. The insiders who tend to have a good feel on this stuff, in particular, Tony Morrell from the Big Spur. That guy is so inside. I think he knows when Muschamp changes his underwear. He's not written anything yet about Brad Long as a potential replacement for Lance Thompson. And by the way, I hate to say this for the outside media in Columbia, when you think you got a scoop on something, it's been on the message boards for these websites for about 10 days or longer. These guys have they have the internal movement of the athletic program at South Carolina covered like nobody else. It's pretty amazing.
Like the bowel movement? No, not that.
Oh,
Speaking of,
what?
Did you read the disgusting comments that was attributed to Dabo by one of the players?
No. What?
I say disgusting. I mean, it's a bathroom comment.
What did he say?
I don't really want to say it.
Don't say it.
You have to go look it up. I think it was Furl that said it in an interview, talking about how Dabo motivated them after the loss to Alabama. What he said was the loss to Alabama was like, what he equated it to. And coming back and finishing the job, so to speak. They didn't finish the job last year. And so
I need to see that.
I'm not going to talk about it because I find it really kind of nauseating for me personally. Because I'm, you know what I'm talking about, bro?
You stay above.
Have you seen it?
You stay above board.
But my imagination is running wild.
All right, 800-956-7266.
I feel like I need a little bit more on this. Why have I not seen this?
You got to go back and find a quote from, I think it was Cleveland Furl.
You want to see
might be on Tiger Illustrated.
Go
go to Tiger Illustrated. I think it might have been in there where he was quoted.
I mean, I knew that Christian Wilkins gave him a wet willy on stage, but that's about it.
That was pretty clean compared to this particular analogy. We'll continue with your phone calls in a moment.
Oh, I did see it. Now I
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
We've been talking here on Sports Talk about the reporting involving Gamecock defensive line coach Lance Thompson. More of your phone calls still to come, 800-956-7266. And really, this kind of comes back again to what we've been saying over the course of the last couple of days with the shuffling on the Gamecock staff. Is this more of the fact that not necessarily what these guys doing, but what other people can do, and maybe just a refresh and a reset button on where some of their recruiting has been? But the problem is, this is a position where South Carolina has actually recruited pretty darn well.
Defensive line?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what the problem is here, why Muschamp feels the need for a change with the defensive front, because look, he only coaches, Lance Thompson, your interior defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Look how far Javon Kinlaw came under his tutelage.
Sandage.
Look at Rick Sandage, how he
Barry.
immersed. Yeah, and so, I don't know. Could be a personality thing. Could be a recruiting thing. Maybe he wasn't getting after it hard enough. Maybe it's just time. 3 years for Lance Thompson at any place has been a long time for him.
I think that's usually what happens in his schedule.
Who was it? Suitcase Sonny Smith? So I think you could apply that to Lance as well. Bob Iback coming up in just a moment. Folks have been waiting on the phone lines. Let's hit Ted in Gilbert up next here on Sports Talk. Hey, Ted.
Hey, Phil. How y'all doing?
Good, sir.
Yeah, I was actually calling for another reason, but when y'all got into that segue right before the break, you were asking if Will had heard what was said. It was something that came from Coach Stallings.
Yes, well, we found it during the break. I heard Cleveland made mention of it after the game, and now I'm seeing the origination of that. But rather humorous, but not good enough for air.
Yeah, the imagery is not good during the dinner time hour. If you
not good enough for air.
You know what I mean? So we're going to pass.
But we're all there. We're all there.
Especially if you got short arms.
We've got a clean bill of health there.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Hey, I'm a Clemson fan. I was just going to call about the South Carolina thing. I mean, they need to do something with the leadership they've got there. I mean, they can't figure out what they want on the side of their helmets, what they want to be called. I mean, why don't they just call them losers? That's what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why do you have to change your name or your script or your uniforms? I mean, stick with something and do it right for a little while and maybe build some tradition.
Listen, thanks for the call, and the Gamecocks don't appreciate the shot, but I do agree with you. Find something that works and stick with it. And if you're trying to build a tradition, tradition is more than videos and more than just words and more than dancing in the locker room. I mean, it's having something that everybody, there's got to be. You're right. There's got to be strong leadership. Somebody who will stand up and say, "This is who we are. This is what we are, and this is how we're going to be." And you got to be able to stand up and take the criticism and take the hear the arguments from the other side and say, you know what, we're sticking with this because this is the best for the program. I'm not big on constantly changing uniform. This is not Oregon. Oregon got away with it because of Nike and just the West Coast, Northwest mindset out there and the wildness of the colors and the field and everything like that. That worked well for Oregon. But, South Carolina, garnet and black's the colors, and that's a great combination. I thought they had really good-looking uniforms with my taste is for the big block C with the Gamecock in the middle. I thought that was a great look with the big, bold stripes. And stick with something. I don't understand. Well, I don't understand, unless you're just trying to sell more jerseys and that sort of stuff.
The key is winning, because I talk to Broncos fans, and there's a few Broncos fans. I hate those uniforms. I hate them. Then when they won the Super Bowl, those uniforms look good. Mm-hmm. It's the winning. It's not what you got on. Penn State for years had those YMCA uniforms, and they looked good when they were ready.
But they haven't changed them. They stay with their uniforms. They've stayed with their look through thick and thin.
You need to find a consistent brand, stick with it, market it, and like you guys said, you need to win.
Bob Iback, when he was with the Cubs and they were losing and losing and losing, they never really changed their look. They were the huggable, lovable little Cubbies. And now that they're good, they're still the huggable, lovable little Cubbies.
Except they have a tude now.
Well, they do have a little winning attitude. It's now not just going to the game to watch them get beat and sit
Get drunk
in the bleachers. Right now, they're actually out there to win some baseball games. How are you, sir?
I am doing a little bit better than last night when we talked. Got most of my voice back, but you're so right. When I joined the Cubs in 1981, a lot of fans in Chicago don't remember this. We had in the 82 and 83 seasons, we closed off the entire upper deck at Wrigley Field because we didn't have enough fans coming out. And I remember there was a game in 1982 with Willie Stargell was playing his last game at Wrigley Field, and I was the MC before the game, and there must have been only maybe 5,000 or 4,000 fans there that day. I'll never forget, Willie grabbed the microphone from me and motioned to the fans down the left field and the right field line to come on in behind home plate. Well, here's what happened. It looked like a high school assembly between the two dugouts. All 4,000 or 5,000 people were right in that section, which was great. Now, he talks to those people for about 5 minutes. He's done. He goes back in the Pirates dugout, hands me the microphone, and I start walking back to the Cubs dugout. And I get a call from Arnie Harris from WGN. He was the producer.
Oh, yeah, long-time producer.
He's yelling at me. He says, "Back, you got to get those fans to move back down the left field and right field lines." And I said, "Arnie, I'm not going back out there and tell them they got to move again." So for the rest of the game, he had to use only one camera from dead center field. And it looked like we had a sold-out ballpark, when in reality we had 5,000 people there.
He's the guy that Harry used to always talk about on the broadcast, right? Used to always complain
Harry
about
talked about him because Arnie had a penchant for spying and finding some of the best-looking girls at Wrigley Field, and he would get group shots of these gals during the game. That was the entertainment back in those days.
Well, listen, you've only got about a minute to tout your football, so get at it.
Okay, we start out with 5,000. Of these Wilson footballs for Clemson, the championship. We're down to probably about 2,000 left, well over halfway sold out. They're $99 each. It benefits Extra Yard for Teachers. We'll have the scores of every game on there this year. First time ever a college football team ever won 15 games in the same season, 15-0. You'll get a certificate of authenticity, and it's got every game on there, game by game, with the date, the opponent, final score. So if you'd like to get these footballs, there's two ways you can order them to help out Extra Yard for Teachers. The toll-free number is 1-800-345-2868. That's 1-800-345-2868. Or you can go right to the website, NICOsports.com, NIKCO sports.com, and get yourselves up in this tremendous. It's a historic season. And like I said, a couple years ago, when Clemson won every game, every one of these footballs sold out, and we're getting close to doing that. I think by the parade on Saturday, we'll be sold out.
Wow. Tell you what, Clemson fans can't get enough of the national championship footballs, and they'll be looking for another edition in 2020, remembering the 2019 season, probably.
Well, you know what? As long as you keep Trevor Lawrence down there for a couple more years. I heard this absurd thing today earlier that somebody said advised the kid not to play the next 2 years.
Yeah,
that's stupid.
Same thing they told Clowney after 2 years. After going into his third year, they said, "Hey, man, why don't you just sit out the year and train and all that kind of stuff?" And I don't think he ever really considered it, but it was a story for a little while.
Well, you know what? If you're a football player, play football.
Right.
Thanks,
he's still
Bob.
as good as he was. He's still young. There are still things he can learn. He doesn't. He's not Aaron Rodgers just yet, people.
And he'll put more meat on those bones too.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he'll figure out how to slide.
Hey, Bob, thanks very much, man.
Hey, listen, it's always a pleasure, guys. We'll catch you again soon.
Maybe I'll see you in Chicago this weekend. I mean, there's not too many people walking around Chicago.
You got to bring some giardiniera back for me.
Absolutely.
You know what that is, right?
Yeah.
The stuff they put on the Italian beef.
Yeah. We're eating Italian tomorrow night.
No, the Italian beef, not the Italian food. Like, the Italian beef sandwiches?
Oh, no, I didn't know about that.
You don't know about Italian beef? You're going to Chicago? You got to get Hayden to give you some Italian beef.
All right, top of the hour. Back in a moment.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, hour number 2 of Sports Talk on a Thursday night. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes. Recruiting coming up in just a couple of minutes. Also, more of your phone calls. Hit us up at 800-956-7266. Right now, it is time for our weekly gathering with Mike Morgan. Morgan on the Move.
Which is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, the mortgage team more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process. FoundersFCU.com/mortgage. And by BP Skinner Clothiers. People nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner. Actually making an appointment there next week to try and set up an appointment for a custom suit. You can get the best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, anywhere you are in the Vista, or no matter where you are, Brent will come to you, bpskinnerclothiers.com, to set up an appointment.
All right, let's go to Mike Morgan, who was on the call last night as Georgia took down Vanderbilt. Good win for Georgia at home after an opening loss in SEC play. Mike, good to have you with us once again. What did you think of the Bulldogs last night?
I thought they were awfully impressive. Look, they are not going to be confused as one of the most talented teams in this league. But one thing Tom Crean right off the bat has done is that he's injected some much-needed enthusiasm that was lost over a 9-year period of Mark Fox into that program. You just get the feeling like the program is in good hands, that no matter what the results are this year, you can see that program trending upward. You can see where he is going to be able to make some more inroads in recruiting and has some enthusiasm within the players. It's a buzz that I saw at Stegman Coliseum that I haven't seen in quite some time. And that's for a team that, again, nobody expects to do a whole lot this year. But when it came down to it in the second half, they came out and did everything right and had a convincing win over Vanderbilt. So I think Georgia's a team that, whether or not they play in the postseason, they're going to cause some problems, some pains in the sides of a lot of good teams, because on any given night, they do have enough where they play hard enough that they can actually stun some folks.
Yeah. By the way, USC women out to an 8-0 lead on Florida. The Claxton kid out of Greenville looks like he's put on a little more weight, a little more size, and is emerging as a potential, I'm not going to say star, but a pretty big contributor in that program.
I might even say star. I think by the end of next year, for sure, you're looking at an all-SEC player, like a potential first-team all-SEC guy. He's 6'11". People use the cliche way too often, so-and-so can play all 5 positions. 99% of the time, it's completely false and comes from somebody who doesn't seem to know the game real well. He actually can do that. He actually can play some point. In fact, they asked him to do that. He leads the league in rebounding and block shots, the trademark of a guy that can play the 4 or 5. And I think eventually his shot will continue to improve to where he can play some 2 and 3. He's one of the most unique players in the league. He has gotten stronger, as you mentioned. And again, I think, and Tom Crean told me in day 2 that he saw him, he said, I knew he had something special. So I think he's actually a rising star in this league.
Look at this Gamecock outfit, Mike. They sit 2-0 in the conference, and a good opportunity to possibly go 3-0 facing Missouri Saturday, who started off the conference season with a loss. And, it seems to me that this team is starting to find itself. Silva's playing a lot more confidently. They had somebody wearing Mike Kotsar's jersey that I didn't recognize 2 nights ago. From our perspective, things could be in store for Gamecock turnaround. How do you see it?
I see the same. I think it's, first of all, you mentioned Mike Kotsar, and I'm glad you threw him in there, because I know it's a career night, and we're not going to say that Mike Kotsar is going to be that kind of player every game. But when you're already down Minaya, and the whole Cousinard thing didn't work out, and Moss has been injured, this is not a team that's deep enough where they can just have Mike Kotsar sitting on the bench due to an injury or concussion or whatever. So that is a big addition to get him back. When they get Minaya back, whether it's the end of January, what have you, that's also a big addition. I know these aren't household names, but Frank has always been, since he came to Carolina anyway, and he doesn't have, the star power that perhaps he did when he had like a lottery pick in Michael Beasley at K-State. He's been a sum has to be greater than the parts kind of coach. And when you take away some of those parts, it's really hard for them to do what they need to do in against a very talented SEC, and for that matter, a pretty talented out of conference schedule. So Coach Sharp being back definitely helped. I think you saw that. Look, I don't think anybody on the planet thought they were going to be 2-0 against Florida and Mississippi State, the way they struggled at times in out of conference play. But now they got a good chance to be 3-0, and at that point, you just get more and more healthy, and who knows? Maybe they can actually make things really interesting come March.
USC women out to a 17-0 lead. Now, I'll ask you real quick just to follow up on what Will said about the Gamecocks. One thing I'm liking, and one thing I see in successful basketball teams is not just your starting five, but role players off the bench who contribute in a big way. And I think now we're seeing guys fit into their roles, and you're seeing like Hasse come in and play much better than he did last year and playing with a lot of confidence. And, of course, getting the contribution from Hassani Gravett off the bench, and he's playing the best basketball of his career. Guys are kind of fitting into their roles now.
Well, they have to, because they don't have a go-to scorer. There is no Sindarius Thornwell on this team, and I don't see one emerging this quickly. So they have to have all those guys emerge in their various roles and continue to improve their play and continue to play hard. That is the Frank Martin recipe. And he's been able to win sometimes without the benefit of a star player, an all-conference player. I think that's going to have to be the situation all season long, because you just don't have a guy that late clock situation where you say, oh, yeah, I want the ball in his hands. He's going to get me points. Sindarius Thornwell is obviously that guy at the end of his career. There's nobody that fits the bill in that roster now, but there are a number of guys that do various things very well to the point where they can continue to pull off some upsets.
Mike, Ole Miss's administration decided to go seasoned coach. We're not going to go for a young hot shot. And they grabbed a good one in Kermit Davis from Middle Tennessee, but nobody saw this coming. How dangerous is this Ole Miss team?
Pretty darn dangerous, Pro. And first of all, Kermit Davis was an exceptional hire. I was surprised a couple of other SEC schools didn't hire him sooner. LSU, for example, a few years ago. Some would say this has been a long time coming. With what he's done at Middle Tennessee, he already has ties to the league, known as an exceptional recruiter. He's going to win there. It's a bunch of guys that I think, clearly the batteries ran out on Andy Kennedy and company, and it just wasn't going well. But they've been re-energized. They are extremely athletic. They're not that skilled, but they are athletic, and they can cause some problems. So how long will it last? I'm not sure, but they're making things really interesting right now. I think that's probably the best story of the year so far in the SEC.
Just a quick word, Mike, on the team that South Carolina plays Saturday. Missouri, of course, they're down one of their best players. They have been the entire year. How have they handled it, and what kind of team are they seeing in this Columbia on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, Jonte Porter was a huge loss. It just defeated so many of things that they wanted to do. Now, they still have Tillman and Geist and a number of guys back from last year, but I look at them and I see a team right now that's a little bit lost, quite frankly. And I think this is the right time to play them. Eventually they might figure it out. I think they've got a good coach, and I think they do have some parts. But right now, I still think they've got a little bit of a hangover, much like Vanderbilt has a hangover from losing Garland. I think they still have a hangover that's lasted a while, losing Porter, and they just haven't figured out what they're going to do, because he was such a huge part of their offense, so big. The offense truly was going to go through him this year, and now I don't know if they have a guy that it can go through. Per year is a solid player and a 4-year guy, but they're scrappy. They play tough. They play hard-nosed. In a lot of ways, you could say they play similarly to what Frank Martin preaches. But I think the Gamecocks would have the advantage in that game.
All right, you've got Texas A&M this weekend?
I do. I've got the Aggies at Alabama. Alabama a week ago, of course, upset Kentucky. Kyra Lewis is one of the most talented point guards in the country. He's also the youngest player at 17. I like what Avery Johnson's team has this year. I think they'll be a bubble team once again and can sneak into the tournament. They're more than just Colin Sexton, who they lost. They've got some guys. So I expect them to be off to a good start, and we'll see what the Aggies have in store.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Have a great weekend.
Mike mentioned astutely it's good to play Missouri now while they're still trying to figure things out, but the Gamecocks do get them twice this season.
USC women having their way with Florida, 22-3. 2.5 to go in the first.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. We'll get back into the phone calls. We know we had a couple of y'all who were hanging on a couple minutes ago that we will return to. 24-9, South Carolina leads Florida. By the way, that is lowly Florida. That is not the same name that is on the men's jerseys that is on the women's jerseys. Florida 4-11 with an 0-2 start at the SEC. By the way, South Carolina, the only team in SEC play to have its men's and women's teams start 2-0, trying to go to 3-0 before the weekend.
The basketball team's trying to salvage the athletic year to this point for South Carolina from the standpoint of having something big to cheer about.
Still baseball. Still
well, to this point. I said to this point, yeah, baseball is still coming, and they had a very nice end to their season last year after it looked like it was going to be a horrible season.
The volleyball team made the NCAA tournament.
They did. Anybody pay attention to that?
Women's soccer team. Still pretty good.
Anybody pay attention to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll count yourself among them.
There are people who like those things.
Let's go to recruiting.
There are people who like.
I think more people like recruiting.
I don't know about that.
Than volleyball and soccer combined.
How about that?
You can contest me on that, but I think not. First of all, in recruiting, it's a long shot, and probably nothing's going to happen because it's so late. However, I checked with running back Asa Martin yesterday. You might remember him. He's out of Alabama. He went to Auburn as one of the top running back prospects in the country for 2018 and expected to be redshirted. And somehow the Auburn coaches mixed up the number of games he played in and played him in 5 games, much to his mother's consternation and his. And so he left Auburn. And right now he plans to go to Miami. And who recruited him to Miami? Thomas Brown. And so he told me last night that, he's set to move into his dorm at Miami tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. But if Brown were to get in touch with him and talk to him here at the last moment, then, he'd be interested in talking to him because he likes Thomas Brown. That's obviously the main reason or one of the reasons he decided to transfer to Miami.
So he didn't sign an LOI because it's a transfer, so it's a grant and aid situation.
It's a financial aid situation, yeah. Coming out of high school, he was Mr. Football in Alabama, 2,228 yards, 33 touchdowns as a senior. No update on that as of this evening. Clemson looks in really good shape now with receiver Zevian Capers of Alpharetta, Georgia for the 2020 class. A big receiver with really good speed. He told us last night Clemson is his favorite. A commitment is not far off. He said probably on his next visit, which could come this month. He said it's a pretty big margin over USC, Florida, and Arkansas. He talks regularly with Jeff Scott and Brandon Streeter. He went to 3 games at Clemson this season. Of course, you see a quarterback who throws the ball all over the field and those receivers doing those things. It's very attractive. USC and Arkansas have been recruiting him hard as well. He went to both during the season. Will Muschamp, he says he talks to every day, and he's telling him about what? He's telling him about needing playmakers and how he can come in and be a big play guy for them. But it does look like he's got his mind set on Clemson now.
What did he think of the bathrooms?
I never went there with him.
I'm sorry.
This season, he had 60 catches for 1,187 yards and 12 touchdowns. Offensive Player of the Year in Forsyth County. He was also named All-Region and All-State. Speaking of Brown, he's contacted, I think I might have mentioned this last night, I'll mention it again, running back Jerrion Ely of Jackson, Mississippi, about a possible visit with the Gamecocks. Recently decommitted from Ole Miss, taking an official to Clemson this weekend and Ole Miss on the 25th, and he's taking one to Mississippi State. So there is that open weekend next weekend if Brown can convince him to come take a look. Clemson offered 2020 receiver Rakeem Jarrett of Washington, a national recruit. USC has also offered him. 2020 receiver running back Jaheim Bell of Valdosta, Georgia, offered by USC. USC offered defensive end Jay Hardy, 6'5", 265 of Chattanooga. Tennessee, Vandy, Duke, Indiana, Kentucky, Georgia Tech, some of his other offers. USC 2020 offensive line commit Isaiah Walker was offered by Miami and by Penn State today. Florida State offered him on Wednesday. 2 sports standout Michael Dukes of First Baptist picked up a basketball offer from East Carolina. He already has a football offer from the Pirates. 2020 offensive lineman Miles Hinton of Norcross, Georgia, who has a Clemson offer, committed to Stanford, and former USC point guard Raw Felder, who now attends junior college in New Mexico, committed to Kent State.
That's a nice landing for him.
Well, let's hope it works out for him.
Mac.
By all accounts, he's a nice kid. He's obviously had his issues at South Carolina, but he's trying to straighten himself out in junior college. He's going to get a chance again. Well, South Carolina gave him 2 chances. He didn't make it to the second chance, but they did give him 2 chances, and now Kent State is going to be the place. Recruiting available on our website, of course, at SportsTalkSC.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. And our recruiting podcast updated right now about once a week. Look for that when it comes out on Twitter. I usually do those on Sunday night.
There's a part,
sometimes Monday.
There's part like Avon salesman when it comes to these recruiting guys in the league. When you think about the fact that Thomas Brown was probably doing all this stuff for Miami, and then all of a sudden goes to USC, and he literally is hitting the ground running that night talking to guys.
Listen, I can remember when coaches could go to the Shrine Bowl practice.
Yeah.
All right. And that's usually now that's a week or 2 after the season back then. And coaching changes were happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen coaches come to Shrine Bowl practice on a Monday wearing one school shirt, come back on Tuesday wearing the shirt of their new school. I mean, it's who's paying me today. That's who I'm recruiting for.
And that's what it happens. I've been in broadcast sales. You go to another sales job. What's your client list like? Who can you bring over here? Because they're looking at what you got. There you go.
And listen, there is no. It's a lot different than basketball. There's no respect in football recruiting. Just because a guy is committed to you and I'm going over here doesn't mean I'm not going to try and take him away. I mean, it's fair game in the world of college football recruiting.
It's a world of dishonor.
True that. All right, back to the phones we go. 800-956-7266. We go to Robert in Georgia. Robert, welcome to Sports Talk. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't Cleveland Ferrell think about coming back? Why would he automatically go to the NFL?
Well, I mean, if you just look at it from where we sit, you see a guy that's got 2 national championship rings. He's already graduated. He's being projected as maybe a top 5 pick in the draft.
Saw him mocked to the Jets at one point, actually.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's really nothing left for him to prove. All his buddies, in terms of the guys his age who he came in with and who he really bonded with, they're leaving. But you know what? I'm not sitting here. I'm not walking in his shoes. He might have an entirely different look at things. He might love college so much that he wants to come back for another year.
What about the culture? What about the culture of what Dabo Swinney has established there? What about that culture? It's hard to understand, Cornblue. It's hard to understand, but what about the culture?
How much is that culture paying him?
It doesn't matter.
I think it matters. I think it matters.
It doesn't matter. Cornblue, not all these guys are out here for the money. They're out here for the experience.
Well, you got 3 guys who are leaving, and the culture is just as important to them as it is to Cleveland Ferrell. But they decided it's time for them.
What more can he accomplish that he already?
Them all in the one lump sum.
What more can he accomplish while he's there?
There are guys who legitimately have reasons monetarily that they want to go.
Yes.
But you can't lump them all into that category.
I'm not saying we're lumping them all. I'm saying what more can he accomplish that he hasn't already accomplished there? He can't rise his draft stock any higher. He can't rise his draft stock any higher.
Accomplish a second straight national championship.
He already has 2. How many? He's not going to have any more room in his hand.
What about a second in a row?
Listen, it's up to him. We're just.
I'm not going to begrudge him for doing it.
We're just sitting here. It makes common sense wise, and of course, common sense doesn't always apply. Common sense last year said that Wilkins and Bryant and Ferrell would all be leaving, and they all came back.
There's only one.
So it's up to him and his family and whatever he's comfortable with. And if he were leaving, if it was 100%. Unless he's vacationing somewhere and just relaxing right now.
He's in Richmond right now.
He would have already announced that.
You go to college to enrich yourself to make a living.
And guess what?
If you're at the point of making a big living, you take off.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. What about the culture?
That's what I'm saying.
I like culture in my yogurt.
Don't steal my idea. I'm going to get me some T-shirts made.
What about the culture?
That's what's going to be on it.
All right, basketball. Furman is leading VMI 28-18. That's late in the first half. Paladins going for their 15th win of the season. We've got Wofford, no trouble with Greensboro thus far, 26-8 in the first half there. Coastal Carolina trailing Texas State at home, 24-21. Upstate with a 31-24 lead on Radford in the first half of that ball game up in Spartanburg.
How my Paladins
We've got
doing?
High Point leading Presbyterian, 34-18. I already said they were winning. High Point leading Presbyterian 34-18. That's late and a half.
They said, how about them?
The Citadel trailing East Tennessee 27-22. About 5 minutes to go in the half there. Winthrop 40-37 on Campbell late in the first half. And I think that's it for state teams in terms of games that are going on. Charleston, okay, yeah. Drexel leading Charleston 33-32 late in the first half. Oh, and Charleston Southern is trailing Hampton 22-18. That is with about 10 minutes to go in the first half. USC women still up big in their game over Florida. As soon as they flash a score. You see a score recently? They're still up big.
They're up by 19, I think.
Back to the phones we go, 800-956-7266.
33-16.
We go to well, he calls himself Triple T, but he's better known as the Angry Black Man here in Columbia. ABM, what's going on? Long time.
Hold up. You need to call me national champion. Stop saying ABM. Address me as national champion from now on.
National champions. Well, you call us about
BM has another concept.
Whenever the Tigers win a national championship, that's about when we hear from you.
Well, you know, I keep telling you all I'm saying is the culture is the way of life.
Oh, here we go again.
Oh, my God. What about the culture?
You know, all those guys who called Dabo used car salesman.
You were one of them.
Substitute teacher, cheerleader.
You were one of them.
Cheerleader.
Oh, no, I didn't.
No, you called him worse things, didn't you?
I have to give them a chance. And nobody did, I'm saying. So, you know, that's the results of hard work and you're playing football the Clemson way.
And pretty good coordinators.
Oh, yes, they had good coaching staff, good recruiting.
Venables.
So what do you think, man? What's the future hold for the Clemson Tigers?
Another championship next year.
They'll be the favorites. You know, they got to fight off complacency, which is only natural.
It's a hard thing.
Of course, you get some young guys in there who are hungry. How hungry will they be next year? You know, Dabo's done a great job of keeping them hungry year in and year out as they bid near the top. But now that you are, not only did you win a championship, you won it so convincingly that people are now calling you the best program in all of college football. That you are the one at the top of the mountain. You know, the old sitting on the Roy bus, as Dabo likes to say now, he can rest that because everybody else is on the Roy bus because they are in the best bus because they're the best in the land.
I'm upset with Dabo. He should have scored in the fourth quarter. I wanted to score at least 50 on board.
Mm-hmm.
No, he did what they couldn't do against South Carolina, which was rest on their laurels.
Oh man, we didn't worry about South Carolina, man. We were just preparing for Alabama. Look, we had fun. We knew we could beat South Carolina, man. You know, we let Bentley have his best game, and Debo Samuel have his best game.
I did find it rather funny how they sat on the football there at the end when they with South Carolina. They didn't sit on the football.
Well,
at the end
the key point I think though is don't rest on your laurels and your time. Dabo's going to have more demands on his time. He's going to have to tell a lot of people, can you speak here? Can you speak? No, can't do that. Got to work on some things.
Yes, you can, because the coordinators are ones making the game plan.
But here's the one point is
you got for that little speech at the end.
Here's the point you got to watch out for. Because this last year, and you remember this, Oliver, with Tua and the defense we got at Alabama, nobody's going to be able to stop us. That's what Alabama said.
You know who was on the cover of Sports Illustrated prior to the national championship game?
Tua.
What?
Mm-hmm. Tua. He got the old Sports Illustrated jinx. That's the other thing. Look out for the SI jinx.
The last thing I'm going to say is I wasn't impressed with Tua. If you let him sit back there, he can pick you apart. When you put pressure on him, maybe get at the pocket, he has to think on the run. He can't.
Yeah, I don't think he had a good game at all.
He didn't look healthy. That's the problem.
Yeah, he looked, to me, he looked a step slow.
If I had to pick somebody next year, I would not pick him.
To do what?
I'm saying.
You mean pick him in the end?
He's only about 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So, hey, but that's my opinion. Like I said, go Tigers. I see all those naysayers. I'll see them next year again. Good luck, Phil. I know you wasn't pulling for us because you're a game chicken. I'm sorry, man, a Gamecock.
I'm a neutral observer, ABM. You know that. Neutral observer.
I don't believe that.
I always have been.
Take care.
We'll see you. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you next year about this time.
They call him in Colombia? They call him Tiger Phil?
No, they call me a lot of things.
Now, remember.
Just don't call me late for lunch.
Here's a new cry for Clemson fans. When you say, hey, so long, remember the culture.
Remember the culture.
Here's the other thing that, and you've made slight reference to it, he can't use any of these stupid underdog cliches anymore, the Roy bus and all that, and little old Clemson. I mean, this is going to have to be a different motivational, psychological mind game situation for this coaching staff to have to keep this program on its edge, because Clemson has thrived on an edge, whether it's, avenging a loss last year to Syracuse, or going in a hostile environment and winning at Texas A&M against an SEC foe, or, trying to keep the momentum going after what happened with Dexter Lawrence. I mean, there's been a motivational tactic for Clemson to easily latch onto in every game. The only thing you can latch onto now is repeating. And what you always say, and what you said too, Corn, is the fact that what's the biggest thing to overcome after you win a championship, and that's complacency.
Yeah, they've done a good job of handling that. They've done a good job of handling their success here during this run.
But this is different, because last time they won a championship, they lost to Sean Watson, and not much was expected of them. They were picked to finish second the year after that in the ACC. So they weren't necessarily looked at as the odds-on favorite to repeat the year after they won the championship last. Here, there's no reason to think that they can't try to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different world now. The way that they won, the way they're being viewed now, I mean, there is no question that in every preseason ranking, they'll be number one going in, and they're going to wear that crown, and we'll see, if the crown isn't too heavy for them to deal with it.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
When they were defending it the last time, I mean, they won every game except for one. They lost that game. Well, I'm talking about regular season. They lost that game to Pittsburgh, and then they lost in the playoffs. So they handled that well. And at least on the offensive side, they're going to be a very mature team, an older team, still young at quarterback, but everywhere else they'll be old. I think they're well set to handle whatever comes their way next year. Back to the phones we go. Always good to hear from the ABM, though. I worry about him sometimes because we don't hear from him from time to time. So always good to have him with us. Make sure he's doing well. Miles in Bamberg, welcome to Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm good. How about y'all?
We're good.
Good deal. First time caller, but long time listener for the most part. I just want to shout out to my Clemson Tigers. Whoever says that they can't do it, kudos to Clemson Tigers. They dominated Alabama in every aspect of the ball game Monday night.
Indeed they did. Indeed they did. Thank you very much. I mean, I don't know what else you can say about that. One more quick call before the break. We go to Kevin in Greer. Kevin, welcome to Sports Talk. How you doing?
I am doing great, Phil. How are you, sir?
We're good. We're good. Go quickly. We got about a minute.
How long have you been on doing the show, Phil? Give me a real quick question. How long have you been doing?
34 years.
25 years or so?
Well, we've been on the air since 1984. Yeah, I've been involved with the show since 84.
You used to be on the head on the local channel up in Greenville years and years and years ago.
WGBL.
Love listening to you. And, lost track of you. I just want to say that you were always fair when it came to Clemson. I just always respected your opinion, and man, I just wanted to say that. I said, I've always been wanted to say that it's nice to hear somebody from the lower part of the state be able to talk about sports and not beat up on the Tigers. So just want to say, thank you so much for being fair and giving your opinion, but being honest about it.
Well, thank you very much.
And by the way, USC, that's stupid.
Yeah. We got to run. We appreciate it very much. We'll be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Appreciate all the calls, the feedback. Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Facebook at SportsTalkSC. We've been resuming posting our stories there. I don't know what happened with our little feed that we had. We're going there, but our account was basically dormant for a year, but it's back now. If Facebook is something you want, we certainly are appreciative of you visiting our site that way as well.
Well, it's just a good way to reach everybody.
Yes.
You can't miss us now. We're on Twitter. We're on Periscope. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on the radio. Where else are we?
We got 2 tin cans and a string.
We're on the culture.
We're everywhere you want to be.
We're on the culture.
It is time to talk a little money and sports. Sometimes a fun topic, sometimes not. We welcome in the money coach here to Sports Talk, Fran Halloran. Good to have you with us. And let's do this on the front side instead of the back side because we get rushed. Tell people how they can reach you if they have a question about how to make something out of nothing. Or the other way around, or take something and turn it into nothing, whatever the case may be.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys tonight. It's pretty simple to get in touch with me. 888-779-2557. It's a nationwide toll-free number. Our offices are in Lexington, and what we do on a daily basis is help people get very intentional with their money, with their retirement planning, with their day-to-day money management, with wealth building. We do it all. So we'd love to help you if you have an inclination to want to work with us.
Sounds good.
So,
I know the business is good. You're on the radio on the Point in Columbia with Kev Cohen. I know you got a lot of people trying to reach out to you. What is the topic du jour tonight from a money sports standpoint?
Well, I got to be honest with you. It's more of a business observation than it is money tonight, and I'm sorry for that. But ultimately, big business and good business means money. So I think I can make this all work. But are you all familiar with the book by a gentleman, Malcolm Gladwell? He wrote a book in 2000. It was his first book. It was called The Tipping Point. Y'all ever heard of that book?
Mm-hmm. Can't say I've read it, but I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, the idea is in business, every business wants to get to the point where they're at the threshold, the jumping off point, where business is about to take off in such a manner, in such a fashion that your head is spinning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it continues to do that until you kind of get a hold of it again. And then you reach another tipping point. But the idea is in the business world, everyone wants to get to that threshold where it is sunshine and beautiful sunny days for a long time to come. What does this have to do with sports? Clemson University is just at the tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of programs out there that have won a national championship. Plenty of them have won one. And a lot of those coaches have been fired shortly thereafter because they didn't win another one. Our pal up in the upstate has just won his second. And he has an opportunity to win another one. And who knows how many more in the near future. Think of Clemson right now as Google maybe 8 to 10 years ago. And Google as it is today, they were at the tipping point 10 or 15 years ago. And Google now is so big, it's part of everything we do. We talked months ago about Clemson gaining national dominance. They've done it. They won on a huge stage in California, of all places. They're at the tipping point. And the Google factor comes into play here. They're the cool place to be. Dabo has done this with his aw shucks, we're on the rest of y'all bus, right? The Roy bus.
Mm-hmm.
All the while maintaining a smile on his face and a song in his heart and talk about, the character of the program. I've heard y'all talking about that all night long.
The culture.
My point is the culture. Excuse me. I said character. I meant the culture.
Yeah.
The culture of the program. What you've got here is the perfect antithesis of Alabama. Alabama is the IBM of the business world, and here comes old Google. And Google is about to kick the crap out of IBM on a regular basis because they got a softer culture. I don't mean soft in the sense that they're not tough. I mean business suits and three-piece vests, right? Three-piece suits with a vest and tight starch collar, that's Alabama. Clemson is now Google, where you can take a nap in the middle of the day or bring your dog to work. But they are at the tipping point. And as much as I am first and foremost a Notre Dame fan, and that loss really hurt, and secondly, a Carolina fan. And by the way, Notre Dame's loss doesn't look near as bad after the national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, right?
As does South Carolina's, for that matter.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But as a Notre Dame first and a Gamecock second, I got to tell you, I don't root against Clemson. I didn't pick them to win because I thought Bama was the better team. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
We were wrong.
But with every tipping point and
at the threshold,
with every tipping point, you mentioned IBM and you mentioned Google overtaking, IBM. I mean, technology never rests, and there's always the next best thing. And so the question is, when it comes to Clemson, who's next or what's next? Can they maintain their spot, or is there a next best thing that's going to overtake them?
Clemson is on a run, and they're going to be on this run for a while yet. I predict that Dabo is going to sign the richest contract extension. Whenever his contract is being re-upped, he'll sign the largest extension ever. They're going to start building statues to him up there. He's won 2, gentlemen. Think of all the guys that have won 1 but then got fired. Steve Spurrier, Les Miles come to mind. Philip Fulmer, right? Those are 3 guys that I admired when I was a coach. They all won national championships, and they all ended up, I won't say Spurrier got fired, but he certainly moved on out of Florida, right?
Come to think of it, though, you make a good point. I'm just thinking, going through my mind around the Clemson athletic campus, that they're not big on statues up there. They're big on honoring, inside the Ring of Honor and all that kind of stuff. I don't think, is there a statue to any athlete?
There's a rock.
Yeah, but is there
a rock?
Is there a statue to any Clemson athlete or coach? I can't think of one.
Who's won 2 national titles?
Yeah,
football?
I mean, if anybody is worthy, of course, you'll get an argument that Danny Ford should have one as well from his national championship.
Ford won 1, and then they fired him.
Yeah, 10 years later, but I mean, he
over another issue.
Had some things. I mean, but listen, but you cannot devalue winning 1. I mean, winning 1 is hard. What would happen in Columbia if South Carolina won a football national championship?
Yeah, it would be the end of the world as we know it.
Well, here's the interesting thing you talked about with Google. You see these companies, these Fortune 500 companies, and people look at the underlings under the CEO, and they hire this guy, and here's this company here, and we need you to do this, that, and the other. Everybody runs and hires assistants out of Alabama. Clemson has this big machine working in business, but none of their high-tech CEOs have left yet. I mean,
and they're not going to.
Well, there's the point. When do you kill the golden goose?
Actually, now listen, Dabo changed early on. He made some moves, and then he has he's seen Chad Morris leave, and he successfully replaced him. We saw Dan Brooks leave and Marion Hobby leave at the same time. He successfully replaced them.
Those are your coordinators, though.
Well, but they're your defensive coaches. Those are your defensive front coaches.
But they listen, this combination of coaches they've got up here, this is the best CEO, CFO, CIO Clemson's ever seen, and it's the best in college football right now, and they're not going to go anywhere. Venables is going to get a huge raise when the time comes. I'm telling you, this is a tipping point moment for Clemson University. They're on the threshold. It wouldn't surprise me if they win another one next year and even another one after that.
It's very hard to spend all that money in Easley and Central and Clemson, money coach.
That's a good point.
There you go.
Well, listen, let me say this. Hey,
I really appreciate it.
Don't act like those are little villages up there. The housing communities being built in that part of the state, they got some monsters up there.
According to what we read, I think Grace Rayner did an article in the Post and Courier. Dabo has contributed to a housing boom in the upstate.
There's some big ones.
Well, it's that area when I worked in there in television, it's people look at that as an area of one big megalopolis. They don't look at it as just Greenville, Spartanburg, and that's all.
I'm gone tomorrow. Y'all have a great night and a great weekend, everybody.
Bring me some Jardinera.
Whatever you want, my brother. And be with them tomorrow night on Sports Talk. Hmm. Okay. See you, bro. Thank you, man. There's a way to delete these in one